Hey everybody, it is Jeff with First Responder Vision Fire Media TV. And today I just wanted to share a couple thoughts on what recruiting could look like for 2024. You know, I don't have to tell you that recruiting is down to its lowest levels ever. And whether or not you're in law enforcement, you're in vocational hiring, or you're in volunteer fire, it is incredibly difficult these days to get the next generation. And there are many, many reasons for it. But I wanted to just offer and propose some thoughts about how maybe we might be able to do this better so that you can find and inform and engage your next generation so that you've got more people, more hands on deck so that the 10% is not doing 90% of the work. And the number one thing that I really think is probably the biggest, most glaring recruitment error that I see is that recruiting in the firehouse is still looked at as a casual recruiting kind of passive entity. You know, if you're in the volunteer side and you look at, you know, the annual meeting shows up and somebody's got to be recruiting chair. Well, Barbara, you've been great at this. I want you to do that. Nah, you can't do it. You got soccer. Ralph, you're okay. You know, Ralph, I know you're older. You're probably out of touch with anybody that's had a phone in 40 years. Great, you do it. And we all go like this and we check. And then a year later, we go back and we wonder why we have not seen the kind of growth we really need because we're working on outdated recruiting models. And if you are not actively reviewing what you're doing in terms of how you're going after people, how you're messaging them, how you are communicating the value of today's fire rescue law enforcement service, you're going to be year over year over year over year wondering why you're getting dwindling numbers. Because number one, they're dwindling because there's less people. And what are we doing? We're actually spraying less water on them. In a moment where the fire is raging, we've got to fix, we're spraying less water on it. And if you are, again, on the volunteer side, you know as well as I do that there's only 12 heartbeats a year within the firehouse. And what do I mean by that? The GMM is the place where people come, we check in and say, well, what's happening on this front? Somebody's not there, they didn't attend, somebody didn't get something done. The meeting was supposed to happen, but it didn't. Well, what do? We'll table that and we'll go to the next meeting. And what should have been done within a week, maybe 2 weeks, is now taken almost 2 months or 3 months. And yet we wonder why we're not getting anywhere, why we're not doing anything. So if your recruitment model is not being reviewed and adjusted to the narratives and the media and the messaging that you need to be doing year over year, you are working on an outdated recruiting model that is failing you, and ultimately it is failing your community. And so one of the ways that I think that could be greatly enhanced, and that is to create an officer position for recruiting. You know, if you look at how we approach the value of apparatus and purchasing apparatus, it could be $1.5 million for something that is really important. It could be the aerial, it could be whatever. And we look at that and everybody around the table goes, we absolutely need that truck because we know the need is there. But we never think about the fact that without the same level of intentional recruiting year over year, that fancy fire truck runs the risk these days of getting dry rot in year 2, 3, 4, or 5 because it's being driven 1-2 days a week, 3 days a week. And we never think about these things. And it's weird because you throw a budget down and says, this truck's going to cost, you know, X amount of dollars. And everybody goes, bravo, we know we need it. The same thing happens with recruiting. And it's like, hey, Sheila, you got $800 for the year. Do your best. And what do we end up doing? We buy little rubber pencil erasers with a fire truck on it. We wonder why we're not getting the adults, why we're not able to effectively communicate things that have to be said in a very short attention span, that we're not able to come together and make these messages more known within our community. And I think that's really one of the biggest things is we're working on an outdated recruiting model. And the second thing that I think is probably the second most glaring problem within volunteer recruiting is how we approaching people. You know, the International Association of Fire Chiefs for years has had a wonderful volunteer workforce solutions recruitment and retention coordinator workshop that's traveled around the country. And I know that this happens from time to time, and they probably have different services and workshops out as well. But if you've not had any professional development, if you've not had any understanding on how to effectively look somebody in the eye that you don't know and share the vision and message of today's fire service, you're not going to find that next generation volunteer because they're not going to respond to pancakes and pictures of explosions anymore. In Tennessee, a couple years ago, I was with my daughter in a small town. It was a beautiful small town, picturesque, and hundreds of people in the main drag. And it was a small town, but there's hundreds of people, shops and little crafts and everything. And one of the alleys down the side, it was really a side street, about 200 feet away from everybody else, was a single fire truck, horizontal, blocking the roadway. And in front of it was a gentleman on a plastic white table with nothing on it, no marketing, no cards, no hoses or fire hats or anything people can touch and experience. And he was wearing his earbuds, his sunglasses, and his khaki hat and all this kind of stuff, completely disengaged from everybody else. And in that moment, I thought, I wonder how many people they bring in every year, because if this is what it looks like to do recruiting in 2024, I can guarantee you that you may not have a 2025 or a 2026 or a 2027. It's not rocket science, friends, to understand that there is a competition of messaging everywhere these days, and we must find a way to effectively communicate. And for me, I believe that it is tactical recruiting. It's not just digital. Digital is great. It has a massive place with Facebook ads, Instagram, TikTok, all these other areas. But I really believe the fire service was established because of the community. That the fire department, the fire trucks, the personnel being in the community on a regular basis, and I don't mean for an hour at a school. To me, that's nice. But we've got to find a way to get back to our roots, because those roots are what will grow into our next generation. And so I just want to leave you with, if you have questions, if there's anything that I can do for you, to be able to help you, I'd be more than happy to. And I hope that I can be of service to you at some point in your endeavor. Thanks so much.